Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, here to assess the cast of Survivor 49. I'll be going through each player one by one, sharing a bit about them, how I feel they'll do in the game, speculate on their tribe dynamics, and in the end, I'll make my winner pick for the season. Basing this off their bios, preseason interviews with Entertainment Weekly, Parade, Mike Bloom, RHAP, and whatever else I came across. Before I dive in, I'll be recapping this season of Survivor, so if you like this video, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Survivor 49 premieres Wednesday, September 24th on CBS. I put a link in the description for you to try Paramount Plus for free. But let's dive into it, starting with the Uli tribe, starting with Nate, 47-year-old film producer who's worked on projects like Captain America and Black Panther. He loves movies and comic books, obviously, and comes across extremely intelligent in a way that'll be impossible to hide, though he's not nearly the loudest person on this cast, so maybe he can fade into the background a bit. I think we can expect anyone with such a high profile to be a big fan and wanting to play the game for the experience, not the money. He says he's been watching the show since 2000 and has wanted to go on for a long time. He watches Australian Survivor and bought puzzles to practice, similar to someone we'll talk about quite soon. He wants to work with fun, honest players. After watching his interview, I felt very good about him, but the other interviews, Rizzo thinks he looks like a poker player, Alex says he looks like he's out for blood. People are already eyeing him as a potential suspicious figure. Next, we have Jawan, who's 28, living in Los Angeles. He works in entertainment as a video editor. He says he worked with Transformers, which is pretty cool. He's a big fan of the show, referencing Australian Survivor multiple times. He relates to Marianne and sees himself as a nerd. He bought puzzles on Etsy and practiced fire, which for a while everyone who was going on Survivor was doing, but this is not a cast of people who are very prepared. He's very expressive, which could be fun and confessional, but also comes off a bit soft-spoken and refers to himself as a people pleaser and that his vulnerability is his weakness, so I think he may find it hard to do what he needs to do to get ahead. I think he'll make quick bonds with Nate over the obvious connections they have. Jawan is mentioning Marvel superheroes throughout his whole interview, and he works in entertainment, so meeting a Marvel producer will likely have him fanboying. It feels like the show is giving Nate a built-in ally. Next up, Rizgod, Rizzo, 25-year-old tech salesperson from Yonkers, New York. I was expecting him to be so annoying or pesky, but he seems instantly chill, smart, and down to earth, and relatable. I personally connect with him saying he was watching Nick Guts and Legends of the Hidden Temple. Maybe he's a person for the people. Rizgod is his alter ego, something he came up with when he was younger that boosts his confidence. I don't mind it. He plans to be Rizzo the human in the game and Rizgod in confessional, which could be really fun. While he's confident, he seems pretty humble and self-aware, which is good. He shares about his autistic brother and being inspired by Eva on 48 and wants to make an impact, so I expect him to talk about that on the show. Strategy-wise, he wants to play hard and be resilient. He knows a lot of random players by their full names, which showed he's a true fan, and I do expect him to be savvy and entertaining this season. Though other players have noticed he's reading strategy books in Sequester, which is a slight concern. Next, I have Sage, 30-year-old clinical social worker. She comes across silly and comfortable in front of the camera. As her fun fact, she says she collects pimples in a jar. That is so disgusting. Also, how? She talks about growing up in a small town, and she's a veteran, so she's probably athletic and an asset in challenges. She started watching Big Brother when she was deployed in Afghanistan, then applied for Big Brother. I kind of prefer her on Big Brother over Survivor, but here we are. It seems like she's really focused on New Era to prepare, and I'm not sure she took preparation too seriously. She says she did shrooms and took singing lessons to get ready for Survivor. But we've seen being a fan doesn't really mean you'll be good at the game, and vice versa. She refers to herself as sneaky and wants to work with other women, saying she wants to work with Nicole and Sophie S., who she thinks is a badass. Even though she doesn't come off as a fan, I get good vibes from her. If I were on her tribe, I'd probably want her around. And Rizzo says she's giving queen energy, so I feel good about it for her. Next up, Savannah, 31-year-old former news anchor and reporter turned marketing specialist from Atlanta. She quickly comes off funny, confident, and charming, and definitely speaks like a reporter, which could be fun and probably makes her a good communicator. She says this is a longtime dream of hers. She applied at 17 and talked about her past with partying and substances, which could be something she talks about on the show. She called herself no nonsense in her questionnaire, but then all of her answers had a jokey, fun quality to them. As I watched, I was like, oh, she is the drama. She loves Fairplay lying about his dead grandmother, says she wants to be stereotyped as the flirty girly girl, but really wants to cause mayhem, and says she wants to create a stressful situation for her allies. You know what? Go off, Savannah. No nonsense, queen of chaos. She values creative strategy and wants to play like Kim, Devins, and Dee, and she wants to work with Sophie B, who I think also wants to work with her. She notices Nate studying and wants to work with him, but then turn on him, so that's something to keep an eye on. Finally, I have Shannon, a 28-year-old wellness specialist from Boston. She seems like a serial entrepreneur who's done a lot. Right now, her focus is running a high-vibe women's community. Her personality is very high energy, very hippy-dippy, and I'll be honest, she's quite long-winded. Hers is one of the longest interviews, and it's mostly her going on and on and on about energy and religion and spirituality and magic. There's a lot going on there, so I get why the video was long, but if you cut to any part of her interview, she's rambling about something that's not Survivor. But she says having all these beliefs gives her confidence, which I do think is true. A big part of her backstory is that Boston Rob is a family friend of hers. He worked at her family's bar before he was cast on the show, and through that, she's gotten advice from him before heading to the show, but she also says she doesn't remember some of it, which is wild. She says she's a longtime fan, which I do believe, but I don't have too much much faith in her as a player. She said she used AI to create a survivor coach to teach her how to play the game, but she also programmed the coach to be a spiritual guru at the same time. I actually think doing shrooms and taking singing lessons is a better idea than this. She's one of many people who want to play like Jam Jam, and I think that's the new answer for people who are a personality hire. I guess we have to have one hippy dippy astrology person on every reality cast, though I feel in the end, she may just be there to make friends and could be in for a big reality check. So let's talk about this tribe. I think this group is the most well rounded. They're all fit enough, smart enough. This is a good group that could all make it far. I'm interested in the Jawan Nate dynamic. Both of their answers were so similar. If I'm casting the show, I do want the Hollywood producer, big name, to have some support. John on Survivor 47, only being in one episode, was probably a big disappointment for production. That one episode recap is still my highest viewed video of all time. So if I'm casting the show and I want Nate to stick around, I need to give him someone like Jawan, who's a Marvel fan. Not only that, but he's a video editor from LA, and could see Nate as someone whose good side he definitely wants to be on. Like, Nate could actually hook Jawan up with a sweet gig, making that Disney moolah la. Then we have Sage, who's going to be a physical asset in challenges. Rizzo said she's giving Queen energy. We have Savannah and Rizzo, who are both obviously going to be standouts this season. I could see this three being a trio and queening out together. The likely first boot of this group, I think, is Shannon. She could have a tougher time fitting in. I could see her getting a crazed edit, but this is a strong tribe, which could give Shannon some time to get things going. Moving on to the Kelly tribe, starting with Alex, 27-year-old political comms director. He's been working in politics for 4 years. Anytime someone says they work in politics, I assume they're out there on the grift, taking part in DC shadiness. And the things he was saying implied that's very much what he does. He plans to lie about his occupation, which is probably for the best. Through his interview, he comes off very erratic, all over the place. He was in a survivor club in high school. I wish I was in one, which shows he does care. And he seems very hardworking. While I most likely expect him to be a chaotic troublemaker, there's some potential that his political background could help him in the game. He relates to Yule, saying Yule played politically, and is very into Sam from 47, saying he was the glue guy, so he's very tied to this glue guy concept. He says his weakness is women, and if there's a girl who even has the capability to manipulate him, he has to vote her out, which is so Brandon Hans coded and makes me fearful of this player. My girlies need to steer clear of this guy. Next, I have Annie, 49-year-old musician from Austin, Texas. Her stage name is Trashy Annie. First thing I'm wondering, is her music any good? You know what? It is. She sings, "Got a bitty tiny booty, but I shake it just fine." I was thoroughly entertained. By appearance, she reminds me of Lisa Dolce from BB26, but I was really worried coming into this interview that she was going to be a Bowie Jane type figure who's annoying, only there to promote her music. But the more I watched this interview, the more impressed I was. She's active and adventurous, does triathlons, and runs an active life business. I like that she seems to have a strong understanding of the show. She's not wanting to play the mom role and says she's going to boss the kids around like employees, and she wants to take risks. There are some red flags. At this point, if they say they want to be Jam Jam, I'm not buying it. She also says she's watched the show from the beginning, but doesn't call herself a super fan. Nothing says casual viewer like watching a show for 25 years. And she says she's not a good liar and trusts too easily, which on its own disqualifies her from being a winner pick. Next up is Jake, 36-year-old correctional officer from Regina, which is a fun place name to say. It's mentioned that he's an ex-male dancer. Are we gonna get some Magic Mike type-ish happening? He has an interesting story. His wife is about to have a baby as he's going out to film, and his dad is losing his sight. So he says this will be the last season of Survivor his dad will get to see. His personality is very sweet. He calls himself selfless and loving and wants to show that nice people can finish first. Get to the end and say he was honest and loyal the whole time. Everything he's saying reminds me of Joe from 48, and he even says he relates to Joe, so I can see him modeling his game after him. But I don't know the chances he'll be as good or better than Joe. Seems slim, and Joe was set up with an athletic stacked cast. This is so not that. Actually, so many people have noted him in their interviews because he's just way more athletic than everyone else. I'm not feeling like Jake's nice guy strategy will pay off, though I do believe he'll stick to it and probably be voted out for being a threat. Moving on to Jeremiah, 39-year-old global events manager from Toronto. Already a potential connection there with Jake, both being from Canada. I love his voice. It's so unique. He's very adventurous and travels a lot, having been to 7 continents. His loved ones think he's climbing Mount Everest, but he's really on Survivor. He describes himself as loyal and sincere and thinks he'll be the underdog, relating to Ty and, you guessed it, Jam Jam. His job requires a lot of communication, and I think he'll be likable. He's a super fan with a plan to start off playing ditzy and wants to target the strong players and keep people close that he can trust. He's especially wary of the bros and already feels like the bros are going to work together. I left off feeling really good about him and that he was a contender for winner pick. Next is Nicole, 26-year-old financial crime consultant from Long Island. I don't know what this job entails, but it's definitely smarter work than I could do. I'm assuming this career requires you to be competent and a good people person. She describes herself as funny, saying she uses humor to connect with people, and I do find her pretty funny. She basically says that being around so many jack straight people is going to be an adjustment, so I can't see her easily connecting with tribe mate Jake. She also says she can read lips through being hearing impaired when she was younger, which is a good skill to have. I like that she wants to make good TV and have juicy tribals. Some of the strategy is questionable. She thinks other players are going to think she's she's silly because of her gold chain. When I say this chain is the littlest chain I've ever seen, like it's just a necklace, Nicole. She also says she's a love child of Shambo and Boston Rob. What does that mean? And of course, she relates to Jam Jam because this is Survivor 49, Island of Jam Jam's Disciples. Overall, I think she has some interesting ideas about the game. She could be an inventive player, but I don't have her as a winner pick. Sophie B is a 27-year-old business owner and entrepreneur from Miami. A lot of her Survivor story is that she watched the show with her grandma, so I expect to hear more about that on the show, and she's been applying for a while. She seems smart, funny, and I don't think she'll take BS from anybody. She describes herself as spicy, and I have full faith that she'll be able to deliver on that. She says she wants to do it like the baddies and wants to be a baddie, inspired by Natalie Anderson, Cerie, Genevieve, and she watches Real Housewives, mentioning Housewives multiple times, saying she's seen every franchise. She loves Nicki Minaj, says Nicki has gotten her through a lot. You do not mess with the Barb. She says she's a people person, but not a people pleaser, and confrontational. Her plan is to team up with the biggest guy on the tribe. She wants to wrap Jake around her finger. Overall, I was impressed with her. She seems to know her stuff and is willing to play and to make good TV. So let's look at this Kelly tribe. Jake is one of the most mentioned people on this cast in the others' interviews. He's by and large the most fit person, and I expect him to carry them in challenges. Then we have Sophie, who's going to try to work with him. Alex is likely to try to shake things up, and he could target Sophie, though I'm putting my money on her in that situation. I could see Nicole and Jeremiah bonding and being some voting opposition to Jake and Sophie. So if I had to make a guess, I think Alex could be the first boot from the group. Then Annie is the swing vote between the duos. Even though they have Jake, I feel like this is the disaster tribe. Moving on to the Hina tribe, Jason, 32-year-old ex-software engineer turned law student. He's obviously very nerdy and intelligent. He was talking about physics and math. I'm like, oh, he's smart, smart. He can't hide how smart he is. He's very analytical, composed, well-spoken. Reminds me of Christian from David vs. Goliath. I think Jeff will love him. He got into Survivor because Kenny from Gabon was his video game idol. I like this gamer archetype. We should see it more often. He says he's scared of everything but wants to be brave, which could be an interesting storyline. He's been on his Game Boy naming Pokemon after the other players. None of the other players mentioned him in their interviews. Not sure if that's because he's an alternate or if he's really just that inconspicuous, but he likes Christina and Shannon. He feels like Jake doesn't fit in with the group and calls Rizzo sloppy about reading strategy books in Ponderosa, so I expect him to be more likely to gravitate toward the women based on what he's saying. Next, I have Christina, 36-year-old MBA career coach from Edmond, Oklahoma. She says she's a modern day Cerie, having 2 young kids, playing at 35 and getting up off the couch, and she says she's a liberal from a red state so she can deal with anything. She seems really kind, she admits she connects with people and gets them to protect her, and she's smart with a background in engineering. She shares that she was going through postpartum depression, dealt with her mom struggling and passing from drug addiction, and she was inspired with the Survivor application. I'm happy she can have this experience. Everyone on this cast say they love her. She's a frequent name that people say looks kind and has good energy, but Christina has her eye on Jake as a competitor, so I expect her to have good social game and a good pulse on who's a threat that needs to be taken out. Next, I have Matt, 52-year-old airport ramp agent from St. George, Utah. He comes off likable, friendly, and has silly uncle energy with so many sarcastic answers. He's ex-Mormon, which oftentimes reality shows milk for all it's worth. He likes to work at the airport because he gets to fly for free. Game-wise, he seems like a very straightforward player. He has experience camping and hunting and wants to be underestimated and play dumb. He's very Rupert-esque. He says he has similar wit to Tyson, and he likes Christian and wants to start an alliance with someone like Christian, which could make Jason an ally for him. He likes that Jake has a barbell nipple ring, which just tickles Matt. He has a good head on his shoulders. He wants to find advantages and keep them to himself, be underestimated, be everybody's buddy, and for the most part, I think he has a good plan going in. MC, 29-year-old fitness trainer from San Diego. She does personal training and sales and has a background in athletics, formerly D1 in track and field. I'm impressed. As former victim of the high school pacer test, anyone who's in track and field blows my mind. But her interview was very short, only 15 minutes, and she got all the same questions, but just didn't have long answers. She's a new fan and plans to pretend she knows what she's doing. She likes goofy people who make her laugh, which this season has in spades, and says she's a people pleaser, but people like her. Some red flags here are that she never watched the show until season 47, and she binge watched 20 seasons before, which is like cramming before a test. She says she trained for Survivor by practicing her running, but not really puzzles. I'm left wondering, was that really a good use of time? They don't run that much on this show. She gets good vibes from Sophie S. and wants to work with her. I'm not very worried for her in the short term, but in the long term, I think some of the red flags prevent her from being my winner pick. Survivor winner, I'm not sure. Future challenge winner, and oop. Sophie S., 31-year-old strategy associate at YouTube from New York. First impression is well-spoken, professional, smart. She studied economics and math, giving her connections to a lot of people on this cast. Also a former collegiate swimmer, making her an asset in challenges. She's been an alternate in the past, giving her more than enough preparation for the show, and she's done a lot of research. Sophie admits her weakness is she's very transparent and wears her emotions on her face, and feels she could bring people together. She likes MC and wants to be allied with her, which is a mutual feeling, and she also likes Annie, but feels like Nicole is already chatting and making people laugh. She feels that way and threatened about Christina as well. Steven is a 35-year-old rocket scientist from Denver. He says rocket scientist with quote fingers. Maybe he thinks we're too dumb to understand his real title. Maybe we are, honestly. He's silly and funny, saying, "What is love? Baby, don't hurt me," in full context. He's both a scientist and a musician, and he has hearing loss, wearing hearing aids, something to bond over with Nicole, potentially. He talks about hearing his farts for the first time. It's riveting stuff. He admits he hasn't seen a lot of Survivor, started watching during COVID, which is common, but he's enough of a fan to nominate a dog Rupert after our old Roop. So much for my dreams. The more he talks, the more I was buying it. And by both being into science and arts, he could make friends with players like Jason, Annie, Sophie S, even Christina, an ex engineer. On first impression, he likes Matt. He also says he feels like Matt reminds him of Rupert, and he likes Nicole and Annie, so he's gravitating towards these offbeat people. So let's talk about this tribe. They had more potential connections than any other tribe. You have MC and Sophie who want to work together. That's easy. Jason likes Christina. I could see Matt liking Jason. Steven likes Matt. So there are a lot of ways alliances can start with this group. But one thing many of them have in common is a background in academics. This is a smart cast, and this tribe is probably the most intelligent among them. As much as everyone on this cast say they love Christina, Sophie's pinned her as a threat. And if this group heads to tribal first, I'd say Christina may be in danger. Which leads me to my overall thoughts and winner pick. The cast of 48 was loaded up with jocks, and at the time I picked Kyle as the winner. This season's full of big personality players and nerds. The amount of players who said they liked math was shocking. So I feel like this is going to be a revenge of the nerds type vibe, which leads me to my winner pick in Sophie S. She's well spoken, athletic, grounded. She can make good connections. And while she's not the most obviously nerdy, she's also into that math and has potential to be queen of the nerds. So that's my pick to win season 49. But let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts of this cast and who's your winner pick? If you like this content, consider liking and subscribing. I'll be back September 24th to recap the Survivor premiere. Until then, you know where to find me. Bye.